Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex, Gore, and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex, Gore, and Lance Cayko.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Firm. I'm Beard Al Yankovic, and I'm here with Lance Cayko. One of our co-workers gave me that nickname. If you watch on YouTube, if you only listen, maybe go to YouTube and you see. I've grown a little bit of a beard.
It is regal.
There we go.
Yeah, that's how wonderful it is. Yeah.
Speaking of beards and stuff that has nothing to do with it, Revit.
Tell us about it.
What I enjoy is when firm owners or heads of firms say, I'm finally going to get my staff or our whole team to transition over, or we all need to get on the same page because everyone has different ways of modeling, different nuances, and honestly, all of those things compound. Because if you're doing something different and I'm doing something different, what normally happens if we ever have to work together is that we kind of have to decide one way or another, and it's a little bit messy, and the project has to get done, so we just do it that way, and that's fine. And we think, oh, okay, that's efficient, like we got it done for that project. Well, the same thing's going to happen for the next project, and the next project, and the next project. You're not going to be on the same plane. You're not going to be modeling the same way. You're going to be less efficient because people have to transition into different ways of thinking. So when firm owners, and it's normally smaller firms, literally 1 to about 9 contact me, it honestly works out well for them to get their team on RevitRocketShip.com and get everyone thinking the same way. If you have had this thought, go check it out, look at it, 30-day money-back guaranteed, so there's no risk for you to try it. If you're putting multiple people on it, contact me. You'll see my contact there. It's also akg@f9productions.com, and you can get multiple seats at a discount. That's all I got.
Wow. Fantastic, Al. Yeah, take a look at that. We're telling you it works. The professionals are saying it works. And what else works is ARCAT. As more businesses and tenants demand green design in their buildings, LEED certification is more important than ever. And while ARCAT is known for being red, they can help you go green. ARCAT provides thousands of LEED reports from building product manufacturers on how their products can help you make the green choice that's right for your project. Head over to arcat.com and find the information you need for LEED. That's ARCAT.com. Check those guys out. This episode is also brought to you by Pella Luxury. As you can see, Al Gore, if you're watching, and I are sporting the Pella Luxury division polos here, or sweatshirts rather. You have never experienced a brand like this before. The collection of brands within the luxury division of Pella are the conversation starters, the pioneers of industry who provide window and door solutions to discerning architects, the building industry, and beyond. They have decades of experience creating things no one else in the world is creating, and the collection of brands are brought together to complement and build on one another. They don't push beyond the limits, they set them. So explore PellaLuxury.com/the firm today. Please take a look at that website. You will find some awesome, phenomenal products. We can't recommend them enough. That's PellaLuxury.com/the firm. Back to you, Mr. Beard.
So how to avoid burnout? It is a real thing in our industry. It is a tough thing. There's a lot of pressures coming in from everywhere, from clients, from the city, from
material suppliers,
but also the different professionals that you are juggling and dealing with. You are dealing with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil, landscape, a husband and wife. This is just in a house scenario, plus the fire review, city review, permitting on the planning level, building codes. Holy cow, can it get exhausting?
I'm already burnt out.
And that's just one project. How about multiple projects?
Yeah.
And then you got co-workers and your boss to deal with too.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff to deal with. So what are some strategies or steps that you can take?
Yeah, I think this is super important. So I've definitely hit points of feeling burnt out. I know Al has too. I know some of employees and colleagues and just people that we work with, have expressed that in different ways. So I think this is important for everybody to think about. And I think we have like 3 steps that have worked for me and Al.
Yep.
And that's why we're sharing it, right? You're coming inside the firm. And I think number 1 is learn how to stop thinking about work at 3 a.m. And believe it or not, there was an article about it that I thought was really cool and that I'm going to bring up here that's worth reading. And the part of it that's worth reading for me is I think the part on meditation. And what's critical about that is like if you meditate, that's one of the things that it teaches you is how you can stop, how basically you address things during your meditation and then what that means for your life and how that can translate. So I'm just waiting for my little microphone to light up here.
It says 3 a.m. I think that's, a clicky title. Really, it should be like when work stops, 5, 6 p.m. How do you stop having it mess with your brain?
Yeah. So I've got an article pulled up here if you're watching on the YouTube, and it's called How to Stop Thinking About Work at 3 a.m., right? So they're just using that number or whatever. But the part I wanted to talk about, which I think this is the way to, this is like a very tangible way for you to wrap your arms around this problem. And everybody who is an architect or designer or a builder, I think also has this problem. Because like one of the builders that I worked with, the very first builder that I worked with, he would say like, yeah, I built this in my sleep last night. And at first I thought that was cool. But now that I am a builder and an architect and all these other things, I'm like, that sounds terrible. Like, don't you want your sleep? Especially Al, he wants to sleep because these babies keep keeping him up. So the article is How to Stop Thinking About Work at 3 a.m. by Harvard Business Review. So pretty credible source here. And skip down to the paragraph. Practice meditation. So similar to self-compassion, mindfulness, and the practice of being fully present and focusing your attention on thoughts and feelings and bodily sensations without judgment, it is also an antidote to the rumination that can keep you up at night. Being fully present in the moment, you are not rehearsing past events or worrying about future events. There's ample research on the positive effects of meditation on anxiety and stress. Further, researchers in the Netherlands found that even small amounts of mindful meditation, 10 minutes before and after work for 2 weeks, helped calm racing minds, improve sleep quality, and sleep duration.
I love it. There's 2 I want to touch on. Okay. Because there's multiple in the list, and we don't have to go through all of them.
Yeah. On this same article?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
One is to make a to-do list, and I think that there's a good way to make a to-do list and a bad way to make a to-do list, and it makes a huge difference for me. But first, let me read what they said.
Yep.
There's always more work to be done. Research by Baylor and Emory University shows that making a to-do list for the following day before bed helps you fall asleep faster by as much as a sleep aid, as well as helps you wake up fewer times during the night. Unfinished tasks cycling through your mind, make you stay at a heightened level of cognitive activation. So here's the different to-do list. Lance isn't one, I am. What I used to do, which would overwhelm me, is I would literally have a long to-do list. And Monday, it would basically ruin weekends too, because Monday, it's like, think about this huge to-do list. And it wasn't until about a year ago that I said, I'm obviously not going to get this all done Monday. Has never happened in my life. It's not going to happen. So now I have a little spreadsheet that has, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And on Friday, before the weekend, I take the remaining tasks that I know I need to do and I split them into different days. So I know that like, hey, that thing on Thursday, I don't have to think about on Monday. I don't have to think about trying to get there. And that has really helped. It's
good.
Yep. The other one I want to do, I won't read it unless you want to read through it.
No, go ahead.
It's engage in physical activity.
Yeah.
That's
a big one for me.
Yep. And where I noticed it, sometimes you don't notice something until you take it to the extreme.
Sure.
Sometimes when I'd go on vacation, it'd be day 3, day 4. And like when I'm on vacation, so like, why am I feeling like pent up? Why am I feeling like, not aggression, but just like pent up and anxious? And then one of the vacations at day 3, I took a run. I was like, oh, that's what I need to do.
Huh.
If I don't do something every 3
Yeah.
days, you know, and then by that extreme, then I realize, okay, this does help, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a stressful time with after this development where like crazy dealing with lawyers and stuff like that. And like, I honestly didn't like the way I felt in the morning. And then I'd go do jiu-jitsu. And then after that, it's like, I'm just a puddle of mud. Like, all right, let's just do work and get, you know.
Yeah. There's something about releasing those endorphins in that way.
Yeah.
So good stuff. So the other thing was to go back to kind of our show. Where am I at here? Okay. Find an outlet. The step 2. So that's step 1, right? Step 1. Step 1 is like finding ways how to stop thinking about stuff at night. You need to be able to shut your brain off 5, 6 when you're done working and recharge. You got to do it. Step 2, find an outlet for the negative and turn it into a positive. And this is something Al, I think, is this is more or less his this was one of his best tips that we talked about over the week.
Yep. In whatever industry you do, but let's just say architecture or building, there's a lot of hard lessons, a lot of things that frustrate you, that are difficult to deal with. How I sort of make that into a positive, turn that into an outlet is, let's say construction. Let's just say framing. Holy cow, this was difficult. There's all these lessons learned. There's all these problems in the industry of, you know, knowledge leaving the industry, not finding enough people, blah, 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 everything that you're dealing with. I will literally take those things, and I need step 3 that Lance will go over later, but then I will funnel them through of like, oh, what if we did SIP panels next time? Like, how would that work? Or, hey, the city zoning is such a issue, and there's all these problems with that. That's one thought, right? Another thought is, hey, we're in a housing crisis. We talk about it all the other time. 2, we're learning about CLTs and cross-laminated timbers and SIP panels. What if we did a fun project in our community of an unused piece of land that I know in a new mid-rise form, using this knowledge and all these pain points to make something super cool? Who knows if it's ever going to come from? It aligns with us like, hey, if we made that news, we knew how to reach out to, we know it could go places, you know, we could do renderings and stuff like that. But I literally, what Lance was alluding to is like taking these negatives, taking all these hard lessons, and how can you turn it into something positive? Whether let's say out of those 2 ideas.
I would say it's manifesting the negativity into a positive form of action. So then you don't have to, all of a sudden it's exactly what you want.
Yes. Yep. And not all of them will manifest.
Sure.
But maybe over time, both of those will manifest. Who knows?
Yeah. Third step is this: take a serious digital break, and I mean no service. So I actually posted in the Entre Architect community about this earlier this week because I wanted to see what everybody else's methods were for avoiding burnout. And some people were funny, some people were serious, and there was a lot of them that came, and what I said in my post was, every weekend this happens mostly in the summer, actually in the winter too when I ice fish, but like I go all the way up into the mountains Saturday, Sunday, and it's impossible for me to even look at my phone if I wanted to check Twitter, Facebook, emails, whatever, text my wife. Couldn't do it. There's no service. So like for me, it is such an addiction, this little iPhone here, that I have to actually physically take myself away from the possibility of even having any service, and therefore de-digitize entirely. Some people might have better self-constraint than me. But I still think that's part of the recommendation. So some people then commented in that thread and they were like, oh yeah, I garden, I shut my phone off. I go for a long walk. I don't take my phone with me, but, and I think it's got to be like, you either need to do it for like a whole day and see what that does for you. And then if that feels good, try a whole weekend. Like you'll start changing your life. It will just change your life.
I couldn't agree more. On a side note, like a separate, like step 3.2, give it a try. I was going to let everyone know, but I'll let you know here. Next week, I am taking a social media and news break.
Nice.
Any social media or news. And that means like, I was going to tell Lance and Nick.
No more texting him.
Don't text me that. you just got to like tell me in person or type it out, because I literally want no social media or no news for a week. And
Well, but I can still tell you about it. I'm actually I'm actually okay with completely helping you further abstain, and I just won't say anything for a week. It'll be fun.
yeah,
My brother does it. It's like who else does this? Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin takes a 30-day. Remember this? Dave Rubin,
yeah.
the Rubin Report. He takes every summer or something like that. Him and his husband.
Yep.
They do a complete media blackout, and then what happens is he goes on Glenn Beck's show, and then they talk about it.
Do they like inform him? Like,
Yeah,
this is what
they
happened?
inform him.
He's like, wow.
Yeah, and supposedly it's all real, but who knows
Yep.
if he looks beforehand.
Yep. The only thing, maybe you can make a final judgment on this. Maybe I'll let Lance decide. So, is the podcast Pat McAfee Sports Show considered news?
Yes. I just said yes. Everybody else said yes too, right?
Are you
I can
serious?
hear the audience right now. You can't do anything.
No Pat McAfee
That's news.
sports?
Here's why. Is because now sports has become politically driven, so like I can't see how you would avoid sports.
Oh, these stooges don't talk about.
Oh, okay. Then maybe you're okay.
Yeah. Okay, it's still up in the air.
It's still up in the air, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, switching gears a little bit. We talk about the economy, as you know, on this show, because as folks who have a pretty good grasp on basic economics, Austrian economics, the Chicago School, that whole thing, we talk about the impending recessions and pending booms and all of that. And as a business owner, like you need to be aware of it. Well, here we are. So I've got an article pulled up from Market Watch. It came out, 4 days ago, so Monday. We're recording this on April 8th, 2022, and it says the U.S. economy will fall into recession this summer as inflation eats into consumer spending, former Fed official warns. So higher inflation will force customers to limit their spending by so much that the economy will slump into recession by the July-September quarter. Former federal governor Lawrence Lindsay said on Monday, I do think we're going to have a recession, probably the next quarter. So that'd be quarter 2, right?
Yep. Yes.
Inflation is eating into customer spending power. It might not be. It might be Q2.
June is the end of 2.
Okay, there you go. So it is Q3. Inflation is eating into consumer spending. They're going to have to cut back, he said. The former Fed governor also said that the U.S. Central Bank was nowhere close on being able to control inflation. Who could have guessed? If you don't remember, we did a couple shows and we made fun of the Fed because they kept on saying, and the media because they kept on saying transitory. We're like, there's no way this is transitory. Sure enough, here we are.
Did we quote ourselves?
Yeah. Lindsay said he was worried that inflation was poised to move higher and there could soon be monthly prints of the CPI above the monthly prints of the CPI above 1%. Consumer inflation hasn't risen 1% or more for 2 straight months since the summer of 1980. That's going to push consumer purchasing power down by 2 points on top of the 2.5 points. It has already declined since the beginning of 21. You can't have that much of a shock without having a recession. Agreed. Lindsay, who served as governor from 1991 to 1997, is chief executive of the Lindsay Group, an economic advisory firm based in D.C. He is most famous for having been turned down a credit card while he was on the Fed board. That's hilarious. Basically,
he is most famous for this.
Yeah. But Stephen, later on in the article, Stephen Stanley, chief economist at Amherst Pierpoint, said the government's estimate is about as unfavorable as a comparison as it could be devised. Alternate measures show that inflation is taking much less of a bite out of spending, he said. In sum, while inflation is likely to be a drag on the consumer, it is unlikely to prevent households from continuing to spend at a solid clip this year. So he's contradicting it, right?
Is this another guy?
This is a different guy, yeah. But then back to Lindsay. Lindsay said the Fed eventually will have to increase its benchmark interest rate higher than the consumer price inflation, aka CPI, now running at an 8% annual rate. And in order to get prices in check at the moment, the Fed's benchmark interest rate is in range of 1/4 point to 1/2 point. There has never been significant disinflation since the early 1950s without CPI being lower than the Fed funds rate. We are now nowhere close to being able to control inflation with what we have. Ha ha ha. Yeah, we told you that was going to happen. So basically, the reason why, and I'm actually going to do a special episode this weekend with my wife, Tune in for that. We'll probably publish it Wednesday. The title of it's going to be how rising how rising interest rates affect the housing market. And why that's so important is like the housing market is such a big part of our economy, right? I mean, Al and I and our firm, both firms, like it's all about the housing market.
Yep.
The more expensive it is to borrow money, the harder it is to borrow the money. And then since there will be a constriction on people being able to borrow money, the less money they'll spend. Since we're a consumer-based industry, our consumer-based economy, you can see how we would fall into a recession.
Do you know how the second person can be right and wrong at the same time?
Go ahead, tell us.
So this is why I think we live in like a 1984 world, meaning double speak,
yeah.
Right? So the definition of a recession is a period of temporary economic decline which during trade and industrial activities are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP. What is GDP? Gross domestic
product.
Yep. But how do they track most of this? In spending, in dollars, right? So I think that they can be kind of lying out of the side of the mouth, meaning, hey, trade last year was $1 trillion. This year, it's $1.2 trillion.
See, it increased.
It increased. Forgetting the amount of goods that came over were 100 billion pounds of whatever. Now it's 800 billion pounds. To make it even more clear, you could say, hey, housing spending last year was $1 trillion, right? I'm making up the numbers, right? But with population increase, like it should be 1.2, right? Well, like this next year, we didn't have a recession.
Yeah.
We had $1.2 trillion spending, but we actually made 20% less housing. So it's like your money going out can be the same or more because of all the money being printed, and you're getting less and less.
Exactly.
Less of it.
Your purchasing power is much less, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, we're not in a recession, but it's like, yeah, but can't go on vacation, can't buy all the stuff, like kind of have to hunker down. Like that's kind of what a recession. Like, what are you talking about?
Remember during the Great Recession? Staycations. Exactly. Like staycations were a thing. Remember that?
But then also too, people might then also get laid off of the building industry because you're not doing as much. The manufacturing industry laid off. So like you might have this, we have all these layoffs, but we're not in a recession. We're spending more. Does that matter to the guy that or lady laid off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not in your textbook definition, but that is still the same thing.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, so another really so Alex and I have talked about this before, is like, if you are locally active, if you're a regionally active architect or builder or whatever, at some point you got to give some kind of pushback to the folks who are making the rules and stuff like that. So that's what we did this week. So Alex and I and our firm, because we do so much work in Boulder County, that we do a lot of like single family homes in Boulder County, unincorporated, and the planning and approval and building process is difficult. It's already difficult. Well, we just had a big wildfire. So Boulder County Board of Review held a public meeting on 2 p.m. Wednesday, April 6th. Al and I made some appearances on there. And what the meeting was about was, the agenda item was ignition resistant requirements for construction in Wildfire Zone 2, the eastern half of Boulder County. So if you haven't been to Colorado, the western half, there are mountains. And then the eastern half, it's all plains.
Yep.
It's just, you're on the plains. It looks like any kind of Midwest area. And so basically Ron Flax, the Deputy Director of Boulder County Community Planning and Permitting, and the chief building official, they presented a proposed update to the ignition-resistant construction requirements for that wildfire zone, and then they asked for feedback from the public. So the first one we're going to tee up because Al stole my thunder.
Woo!
That's what his name was. Al steals Lance.
Al Thunder Stealer Gore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Al Steeler. Al Thunder
Stealer Gore. Al Thunder Stealer Gore.
Al Thunder Thief. That sounds better.
Al Thunder Thief.
Isn't that good? That's your Indian name. Congratulations.
From an official Native American. Everyone heard it.
Thunder Thief. Oh my God, That's pretty good.
Thunder Thief.
That's pretty good, actually.
I'll have to tell my wife and my kids.
Okay, so here's Al's clip. Here we go.
Hi, I don't know how this happened. This is Alex Gore. I'm Lance Cayko's business partner. I did register to talk, but I'll talk later if somehow you can get him on.
Let me.
And if not, I can go first, and he won't mind.
He signed up as the second one on the current list. So Alex Gore, you said,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
he's also signed on and can have his own time. So if you want to go ahead and start, that's fine.
Perfect. Thank you, Ron and the boards. Thanks for taking my comments. Just a couple things. I agree with the Class A roofing. That's extremely typical. Shouldn't be a big issue. As I'm an architect of F9 Productions, and we're also a building company here along the Front Range. As for the eaves, fascia, and soffit, just a quick question, because it says the 2-inch nominal dimension lumber. So a lot of times on the subfascia, it is 2-inch lumber. Are you talking about the finished fascia and not the subfascia? If that material is supposed to be a thicker material or non-combustible? And then I would agree with 0.7, just because going over the codes, and sometimes clients read codes and you have to argue with them if there's a 0.7 in there. And anything, and as Ron said, anything you can do to make the codes a little bit more clear while you have a chance helps out, just so there's not those arguments or those, let's just say, discussions with the building officials too, which I'm sure they're not pleased to have those discussions either. So clarification and simplification in the language helps a lot. My biggest point I want to make is about the exterior siding, and this is kind of the last point, making a 1-hour rating from the outside. That does add a significant cost, doing something like that. And I know that you talked about cost studies. I've been privy to a lot of cost studies, and a lot of times they're not so true. For example, the example of 4K for sprinklers. I don't know anyone who's getting the sprinkler system for any sort of house or a townhouse for 4K. I mean, it's going to be 10 to 15K in there. And that's just one point of a bunch of points. And I bring this up in the context of, I know you guys will be looking at the 2021 codes. I just talked to a builder in the area that says it was going to add significantly to the cost, because you have to basically make the whole house electrified. Insulation values are going up. So each one of these steps adds significant cost. So if these fire mitigations, let's just say, only add, let's honestly, conservatively, 10 to 20 grand, the 2022 code is going to add 10 to 20 grand, and it keeps going up. Obviously, inflation and all these things are adding up significantly. And the point I'm making about that is that while protections are necessary and we should do the right things, let's not add on to the burden if it is unclear that it's going to help. So for example, the 3-foot boundary, I would advise about not doing that right now, because the buildings spaced apart are going to be 3 to 5 foot anyways. It's just going to add another layer that's already taken care of. And until there's a more justifiable reason, it's just going to add more confusion onto the whole process. And the other thing too about the exterior siding, the eaves, I agree with everyone, are the main cause of fires. Adding this exterior gypsum on the outside adds significant costs, especially in a place like Boulder County, where essentially if you're building a big development, it's going to be incorporated into the city, and those are going to go by the city codes. So I'm sorry, I'm done. Essentially, you're doing needle in the haystacks, where the needles are basically the fire protection that we're sprinkling in Boulder County, and we're expecting the haystack not to light on fire when it is going to light on fire. And the needles are not going to stop it from going in this sort of situation. So prudent measures also while clarifying the code are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. The reason I stole Lance's Thunder Thief is because he had technical difficulties, like a boomer that doesn't even know how to hit reply all. So just to defend myself.
Lance Boomer Cayko.
Yeah. I got to come up with a better name.
I thought that, so Al's, I'm so glad that Al did not cut himself short and stuck stuck it out and got that needle in the haystack analogy put forth.
And I had to re-explain it to some people in the firm is like, essentially what you're doing is you're adding new houses that are now needles that are way more expensive than hay, and you're expecting the hay bale not to start on fire. Like, what? It's going to
the hay bale. Yeah, exactly. So eventually I got my crap together, and then I got my 3 minutes in. And then the last thing is we have one of the board members actually agreed with us, which is not typical. Like, I was very surprised about that. So here's me with my little 3-minute talk to them.
Perfect. Name is Lance Cayko. Address is 825 Crispin Drive, Unit 100 in Longmont. I am a architect, owner of F9 Productions, co-owner, builder, and a developer. First of all, I just want to say thanks for taking our comments here and everything. And also, I'm actually pleasantly surprised by some of the recommendations. To be honest with you, one of the things I was expecting as somebody who designs and builds, and then also designed and built our own home in Boulder County, I know exactly what the process is like. I have my grudges about it, and I think to speak about one of the other things that the other speaker says is we already have created an elitist area in Boulder County. Like, that, it is what it is. Let's just call a spade a spade. So while we're calling spades spades, the recommendation for the Class A fire rated roofs, that's an easy one. Bravo to that one. What I was really worried about was that, and I'm glad you guys didn't do it, and I would encourage you further to not do it, is try to do like 1 hour or 2 hour exterior rated walls where there's gypsum on both sides. So if that was ever a thought, please just nix the thought further from any discussions, because that is going to add even more to the elitism and exclusion of middle to lower class people even being able to afford anything in Boulder County at all. Speaking of defensible spaces, I think the 3-foot space is a good idea, but one of the things that we hear every single year in Colorado is water, water, water. We're all worried about water, and rightly so, right? So why aren't we encouraging more xeriscaping, or at least mandating it from here on out? Like, what is the issue with that? It would do several things. It would help with the water problem, because if we xeriscape, then all of a sudden we're using much, much less water in our landscapes. That's what's around my house. It's the ethical and moral thing to do when we live in basically a desert on the plains. And then it helps with the defensible space, because all of a sudden your whole yard becomes defensible space. The other thing too is that the open space. So if the last thing here would be, if we're calling spades a spade, and we are, and I'm saying that this is an elitist county as it is, and it's very unaffordable for people, then, and part of it is because of this open space and the 500,000 acres that Boulder County and the other government entities have purchased, thus restricting the supply of land that you can develop on. Fine. Like, the open space isn't going anywhere. It's here to stay. People, once we have it, just like any program, we're not going to take it away from the people. Why aren't we doing prescribed burns? And why aren't we mowing it more often? Because it is not even an arguable counterpoint that the open space is contributing to the fuel for these fires. Thank you for your time.
Yeehaw.
Awesome. I didn't hear that because I got off. It's hard for me to listen to these meetings. It really takes a lot for me. It is difficult for my whole.
He takes a lot of thunder, but can't take other people's thunder. So,
Nope.
Which is totally, yeah. So I did want your reaction because you didn't, which is fine. I totally get it.
I thought it was gonna be crazier.
No, that was as crazy as I could get.
Yeah.
Within 3 minutes. I mean, you only get 3 minutes, so you got to get it out, and you can. This is kind of hopefully, if you guys have heard me and Al speak multiple times of city councils and stuff like that via this podcast. And one more tip I just want to reiterate to everybody is, like, think about your 3 minutes that you get in thirds. So 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. You have 1 point to bring up in each third, and that's all you get. Like, that's
Great analogy.
Don't you think?
Great.
Yeah. So then here's one of the board members actually agreeing with us to kind of wrap this segment up.
Steve Titus, board member. I thought Lance and his business partner made some good points. I'm a builder as well, and the cost of adding a 1 hour rating to the exterior walls of every single building, it really is, from a complexity standpoint, it's difficult. From just the cost of all that extra material, and I think that there are less expensive methods, just using materials that are fire retardant, like hardy board and brick or even stucco. All of those materials by themselves go a long way toward being fire retardant without adding the cost of 5/8 inch drywall on the exterior of an entire building. I mean, I can understand adding it in areas, building eaves where they're more prone to collect flame, but I really struggle with making that a requirement. And in addition, his comment about all of the open space, better mowing, better fire mitigation on open space is something that just really doesn't happen that much. And Boulder has invested an enormous amount of money in purchasing open space, and it was all of this open space that brought fire to the communities. And I think his comments were right on.
So there you go. Can you believe it? Can you honestly believe it?
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Very, very good. The point that I would make is that if you are in any industry where the government regulates you, but especially architecture and building, is we are in
which is
a
highly
crisis.
regulated. Jesus, I've seen this comment on social media recently, like it's just a free for all. No, my God, the amount of codes is ridiculous.
Yeah, we are in an existential crisis, and I'll make this point is because there is no feedback loop to basically in the government. I forgot what I was talking to you at one time, where it's like you make a rule and it counteracts another rule, and it makes it so like you can't do something. So essentially, like, hey, you have lots that are buildable lots, but they say you can't have an entrance this close to another entrance. If that rule is wider than a buildable lot, you literally like have to go through a process to get special permission to do that, right? The word is either counterproductive or whatever that word is essentially is that if you have the fire department making these rules, building department making these rules, planning department making these contradictory rules, right? And then think about this too. A lot of people do understand setbacks, right? Yeah. But they don't understand, okay, landscape buffers. And then let's say you're doing a big plan and you didn't know about this meeting. And all of a sudden now there's a fire setback. And let's say it's 10 foot. Let's say they make it 10 foot because it's better for fire. Let's say, hey, fire doesn't review the plans until it gets through the planning department. What if you made a development that had 5 foot separations and all of a sudden everything you designed is wrong, right? Think about the time, money, cost in redoing some projects like that. And that's one small step of all these things that they're adding on. And the one point I was trying to make with that 3 foot buffer is you already have 3 foot. Like you either have 0 or 5 foot setbacks. Like you don't really have 3 foot. So like you're already kind of doing it, right?
Yeah.
And they're just kind of mitigating what you can put in there. But what I'm getting at is that you're adding another layer that's unnecessary until you define it. And they literally
it'll be confusing. Like you said, it'll be confusing to people.
Yep. Like, can I build within 3 foot? Or let's say, because now it says that other one says I can't build until 5 foot. And what I'm getting at, why I think this is such an existential crisis is we've already seen prices gone up. And you can say, hey, it's all supply chain, it's all inflation. Sure, some of that too. In San Francisco, you cannot build an affordable unit, which is not high end, an affordable unit for less than $800,000. And it's not all the land costs. And I'm using this to prove my point. People will be like, yeah, that's San Francisco. That's a big city, blah, blah, blah. No. There's a trend that everything is going that way unless you fight it. You could literally be in Colorado, and because of rules in 10 years, maybe this will be a callback. You cannot build an affordable unit for under $500,000 to $700,000.
Well, the average...
And why it's so existential is because a lot of people think, hey, it's no big deal. They just got to pay us architects and we got to design it and we get more fees. No big deal. Right, Lance?
Yep.
Some manufacturer that makes fire sprinklers or gypsum boards, they call them up. Hey, would this be better if to make buildings not burn down if everything had a sprinkler and everything had fire resistant stuff? They go, oh, absolutely. People that are concerned about it, make it happen. And it's all short-term thinking. What happens in 10 years when everything's like that and our business goes down by half because no one can afford it?
Exactly.
You have to think long-term.
It's gonna hit a tipping point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to think that it can't go that way is untrue because it has gone that way.
100%.
It has.
So he mentions 800,000, and I just pulled up. I won't show this on the YouTube feed, but huge prices westward 3 days ago. It's a Denver publication. Huge prices increase for Denver homes, average nearly $800K.
Yep.
Now, that's not the affordable part of it. That's the average house, but still, the point remains.
Would it shock you? It wouldn't even shock you if in 10 years, in 2030, we looked up and there was multiple articles about, hey, all these affordable housings are costing $700K to build.
Yeah,
it wouldn't even shock you.
No, there's nothing about it that would shock me. Yep. Okay, looks like we've got some IRC talk, Al.
Oh yeah. Hey, actually, right on this point.
Perfect.
Someone on our staff was talking to a builder that was rebuilding in Louisville,
which is where the fire, the Marshall fire that made national news, burned all those houses, and we're doing 2 of them right now.
Yep. And they basically said that if you have to apply to the 2021 code, and I know this is just one example, right, from one person who's a real builder in our area. Louisville is not Boulder. It is also not Denver. It's also not San Francisco. But listen to this. He said it will increase. It has increased his prices $50 a square foot.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious?
$50 a square foot. This is why. Now you have to do all the exterior insulation.
Yeah, you got to do 1 inch of exterior insulation on the outside for the 2021 codes.
And normally insulation is cheap. That stuff is more expensive, and you have to fasten it different, right? 2, the whole house has to be wired. This is a big one. To be fully electric in the future. Not that it has to be right now. What that means is that most houses can't just have one 200 amp surface. They have to have 2 200 amp surface. So you need 2 of those, 2 breaker boxes.
So you're doubling the service.
Yep. And then basically
so
in 20, I don't think about this. Oh, he says already, because of all of these other things, in a 2018 house in Louisville is about $450 a square foot.
I've been telling people 300. I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So if you don't so now you add up that the new code surfaces, all just, for the right reasons, everything that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? All this fire stuff, all planning, everyone in planning. Hey, the police department has to look at your development. The fire department has it. They're all good intentions. I'm saying that. But if someone doesn't put a stand to start reducing it, all these good intentions will literally lead to housing hell.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Let's go to heaven with a little A.R.E. Jeopardy.
Bring down the team. Question uno. What can falsely activate a fire alarm? This is in a house. Is it A, construction dust, B, a fire, C, a power outage, or D, A and C? A, construction dust, B, a fire, C, a power outage, or D, A and C? Is this our main group? Oh, and? Yep. D, A. Dust is true, but also a power outage is also true. A fire would not be false. Yeah. Okay. This one, you just need to write the answer. Okay? You're not doing A, B, C, or D, right? You're writing the answer. What is the thickness difference between a 15/32 roof sheathing and a 7/16 wood sheathing siding? What is the thickness difference between a 15/32 roof sheathing and a 7/16 wood sheathing?
1/16.
Okay, you're supposed to write it down,
You're supposed to write it down. Yep.
right?
Oh. Some people hate guessing.
Yeah. Okay, pull them up. 1/32. I can't read that far. 1/16. You just got 1/32. 1/32 of an inch. That's probably not an A.R.E question, but I just thought everyone
Why
should
not?
know. If you haven't done the math, that's literally what it is.
I'm proud you didn't write anything dyslexic.
I was afraid of that.
Good job.
When she said 1/16, I was like, wait, nah.
I know
wrong.
exactly. Number 3, how is retainage used in construction billing and payments? Is it A, retainage is an upfront payment to ensure owner compliance with the contract? B, retainage is a prepaid retainer for architects during the design phase? C, retainage is part of the contract price held back until the work is substantially complete? Or D, retainage is a prepayment by the owner for materials? Does anybody need to repeat? How is retainage used in construction billing and payments? A, retainage is an upfront payment to ensure owner compliance with the contract. B, retainage is a prepaid retainer for architects during the design phase. C, retainage is part of the contract price held back until the work is substantially complete. Or D, retainage is a prepayment by the owner for materials. What do we got? A, B, C, C. The correct answer is C.
Retaining,
job.
like retaining water, retaining money.
What we got for scores? 2.
Whoa.
What was the answer?
Retainage is part of the contract price held back until the work is substantially complete.
All right, number 4 for the win, hopefully. The critical path method calculates the what amount of time that all planned activities will take over the course of a project to be completed. Is it A, longest, B, shortest, C, earliest, D, least?
Can you read the question one more time?
The critical path method calculates the what amount of time that all planned activities will take over the course of a project to be completed. Is it A, longest, B, shortest, C, earliest, or D, least? All right, we got B, C. Reeves, what do you got? She doesn't
Say a
know.
letter.
We
Say a
have
letter.
D. The correct answer is A.
Longest.
The longest.
Yeah. So how many do we have a tie? We have a tie.
Okay.
Who's reading? All right. First one to answer wins. Everyone else gets a try after that.
First one to answer. Correctly.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, 4 options here. Which type of sprinkler system would be appropriate to specify at a loading dock in Alaska? Is it a deluge system, a pre-action system, a dry pipe system, or a wet pipe system? You didn't need to write it? Got to write it. Jason got it.
All right.
Jason, where are we going to eat? Wah! Great. Whoever came up with that. Wah! That's all I have. Lance, take us out.
If you like this episode, please share with a friend, a colleague, your mother, of course. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We'll see you next week.